Thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, education is a leading issue for many parents in this year's midterm elections, and Virginia parents have taken a school district to court. Parents say the district is indoctrinating their children into transgender ideology.
Experts agree that parents should be involved in important decisions like these in kids' lives, and so that's something that's so dangerous about this policy.
The lawsuit accuses school officials of usurping the constitutional rights of parents and teachers in favor of indoctrination. Killed in a car accident, Congresswoman Jackie Walorski dying in her home state of Indiana. Her office says she returned home to be with her Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. After fighting for religious freedom around the world, Sam Brownback realized religious liberty is under growing assault in the United States.
We're losing ground here at home. And this is the mothership for religious freedom. If the United States moves off of this or declines in its religious freedom, that's going to have ramifications all over the world because everybody watches here.
What he's doing now to protect Americans' religious freedom and the truth versus the myths about hospice care.
There's a lot of misinformation out there, and there's a lot of things that people think hospice is about that it really isn't about.
Why patients who choose hospice live longer than those who don't. All those stories and more today on CBN NewsWatch.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
We begin with that lawsuit over education, one of the top issues for many parents heading into this year's midterm elections. Parents are claiming a Virginia school district is indoctrinating their children into transgender ideology, and they're taking their case to court. The school district is also accused of hiding sensitive information on gender identity from parents. Tara Mergener has the details.
Harrisonburg is one of several school systems faced with legal action in recent months. The lawsuit alleges the district is promoting gender fluidity while hiding it from parents. Middle school teacher Deb Figliola is one of those suing the district.
We are putting kids in the middle of unknown territory.
The policy in question requires teachers to ask students which name and pronoun is preferred, and teachers must use it. A guidance counselor is to be notified if the student's choice is different from their biological sex, although school officials are forbidden to tell parents.
Teachers were not to speak to parents at all in any way, shape, or form, not even to refer to the new name that the student was using.
The Alliance Defending Freedom has filed suit against Harrisonburg City Public Schools on behalf of 6 parents and teachers. As practicing Christians, the plaintiffs say this policy forces staff members to go against their faith, that it violates free speech and usurps parental rights.
Experts agree that parents should be involved in important decisions like these in kids' lives, and so that's something that's so dangerous about this policy.
District officials declined CBN's request for an interview, pointing us instead to this statement that reads in part, "The focus is always to foster a team approach that includes and supports the unique needs of the student and family on a case-by-case basis." At least 18 states, along with D.C. and Puerto Rico, have recently issued school guidance in some form focused on inclusion and treatment of transgender students. Lene Erickson, who came out to her own parents years ago, calls the issue complicated.
Folks are trying to figure out how to protect trans kids in a way that really respects all of the complicated dynamics in talking to kids about their gender identity.
Citing confidentiality and privacy, public schools often don't tell parents when students socially transition.
They made the decision to keep a student's preferred pronouns of they and them instead of she under wraps.
Like Harrisonburg schools, a growing number of districts in other states face complaints over secrecy.
You took away my ability to parent my child, even before I had any knowledge.
Others argue there are good reasons for not notifying parents. They point out examples such as to avoid outing kids who could be in harm's way at home, or kids not ready to tell parents.
The number one priority is what is in the interests and welfare of the child.
Deb, an educator of 25 years, however, maintains moms and dads are being kept in the dark at a time children need them most.
Parents are the most important people in children's lives.
Meanwhile, as the debate plays out, experts say the number of gender-questioning youth is on the rise, partly because there is less social stigma. In Washington, I'm Tara Mergener, CBN News.
Republican Congresswoman Jackie Walorski was killed Wednesday in a car accident in her northern Indiana district, along with 2 members of her congressional staff and another person. The Elkhart County Sheriff's Office said a car crossed the center line on a state highway and collided head-on with her SUV that she was in. Wolorski and her husband were previously Christian missionaries in Romania, where they established a foundation that provided food and medical supplies to impoverished children. She worked as a television news reporter in South Bend before turning to politics. Her chief of staff said in a statement, she has returned home to be with her Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Please keep her family in your thoughts and prayers. Senate Republicans are hoping Democratic Senator Kyrsten Sinema to oppose or at least make major changes to the Democrats' new tax and spending measure. Sinema reportedly objects to the bill's plan for new taxes on businesses. And The Hill reports other Democratic senators are concerned about the minimum corporate tax in the measure. Senator Joe Manchin, who signed on to the deal, hopes Sinema comes on board.
Kyrsten's a friend of mine. We work well together on so many pieces of legislation.
But although the bill is called the Inflation Reduction Act, an analysis from the widely used Penn-Wharton model says the measure will have no impact on inflation, and other analysts say it's a bad idea to raise taxes in the face of a likely recession. The governor of Idaho is promising to defend the state's pro-life law, which bans most abortions, after the Justice Department filed a lawsuit challenging the law. Governor Brad Little said the U.S. Supreme Court authorized states to regulate abortion, quote, end of story. And he said in a statement the U.S. Justice Department's interference with Idaho's pro-life law is another example of Biden overreaching yet again. Little says he will work with the Idaho Attorney General to defend the law. Coming up, he was former President Donald Trump's ambassador for international religious freedom. Now he's also started an organization to fight the attacks on religious liberty here in America. We're going to hear from Sam Brownback about what they're doing when we come back. He served as Donald Trump's ambassador for international religious freedom. Today, Sam Brownback has shifted his focus to religious liberty here in the United States. On this week's episode of The Global Lane, Ambassador Brownback explains how he started the National Committee for Religious Freedom because of the growing threat of people of faith right here in the United States.
After years working on international religious freedom, what I started to observe is we're losing ground here at home. And this is the mothership for religious freedom. If the United States moves off of this or declines in its religious freedom, that's going to have ramifications all over the world because everybody watches here. This is the standard setter. So if you start losing ground about what you can do in a church-affiliated club at a university, a public university, if you start having big business crowd in on your religious beliefs or big government, and that stands and it sticks here, that will start taking place in many places around the world. So we've got to really start standing up for religious freedom. And this is your constitutional right. This isn't something, just esoteric or unusual. This is in your First Amendment right of free exercise. You can freely practice your faith as long as you're peaceful at whatever your beliefs are in this country, and we've got to stand up and fight for it.
Still, there have been many court cases. Now, the Supreme Court dealt with 3 main religious freedom cases this past term. Of course, one of the most popular was the prayer case with Joe Kennedy. Is there a way that we can prevent these type of cases from going to court? I mean, what responsibility do we have on the state and local levels? What can we do about it where we don't have to fight these legal battles?
We can elect people that believe in religious freedom. We've stood up this National Committee for Religious Freedom, and if people want to look at that website, it's thencrf.org, thencrf.org. But they can start electing people to the school boards where Joe Kennedy works that stand for religious freedom. State legislators and federal legislators, even a president that supports religious freedom. And that's what this organization is about, really, is identifying those people that are for religious freedom, opposing those that are against it on a state, local, federal basis, so we can start having people in the public space that are standing up and defending the free exercise clause. And remember, the free exercise clause, this all started in Virginia. Yeah. Religious freedom started here. We've got to defend it here. We've got to start pursuing and standing up for it more.
How about getting into schools and universities and really teaching younger adults and young people the meaning of the Constitution and the rights that they actually do have and why we have those rights? Do you think we're lacking in that?
Oh, completely. And it's such a beautiful right. Yeah. You know, the religious freedom allows America to become America. Because you had 13 colonies that had different religious beliefs. They had come from a continent where you killed each other off of different sectors of the Christian faith. And so they come here and they're going, well, are we going to have a Church of America? No, we're not going to have a Church of America, because that's where we had so much division in Europe. But you're going to have the right to freely exercise your faith. So if you want to be a Baptist, an Episcopalian, if you want to be a Jew, you want to be this, that, you can freely exercise your faith. And this beautiful right then allowed these 13 different colonies to come together as one people. And I think too often we talk about the fight, but we don't talk about the beauty of what it allows in a pluralistic society.
The positive side of it.
Yes.
I'm sure your new organization, you would like to see the day arrive where the organization doesn't exist because there's no need for it.
That's right.
Do you think that will ever arrive?
I can't foresee it right now. You know, I mean, this is a basic constitutional right that everybody in this country has. And yet we're seeing schools push in against it. We're seeing businesses push in against it. It just seems like we're going to have to fight for this basic right, lovingly fight for it. But people have a free exercise right. And I really think that if government and business can look at this from the positive standpoint, that when people are pursuing their religious freedom, they're really pursuing the formation of their soul. They're pursuing something to make them a better person. And we should encourage that. We should be behind that. This country of great freedoms requires individual governance. And most people do that through a set of beliefs, a set of values, a religion, a faith, the following of Jesus. So I really hope we can start looking at this from the positive standpoint, but I think we're going to have to fight for this for a while.
Well, faith, action, and a lot of prayer.
Yes.
That's what it'll take. Ambassador Brownback, thank you for being with us.
My pleasure.
Also on tonight's Global Lane program, Ambassador Brownback discusses international religious persecution and the country which concerns him the most, and the results of a new poll asking American adults to share their opinions about the origins of COVID-19. You can see those stories and more on the Global Lane. It begins at 8:30 Eastern. You can find it on the CBN News Channel or download the CBN News app. Still ahead, do you think hospice care hastens death? Well, think again. Patients who choose hospice actually live longer than those who don't. We're going to break down the myths about this end-of-life treatment right after this. End-of-life care, or hospice, is available at home and at healthcare facilities for the final weeks or months when a patient is facing death. It can relieve pain and provide relief from anxiety. CBN Health reporter Lori Johnson explains what hospice care involves and addresses some of the misconceptions about the valuable service.
Hospice is wonderful.
Andrea and Bill Garrett felt heartbroken to learn he didn't have much time left on this side of eternity.
The doctor said to us that he had stage 4 cancer. It was terminal. Bill understood that. It was terminal. And he said that any further treatment would only make him miserable, and it wouldn't necessarily even extend his life. So with that understanding, we together made the decision to just go home.
Andrea said Bill's final days were actually a good experience for everyone.
He wasn't in pain. And he actually said to me 2 days before he died, he said, I never would have thought that dying would be so peaceful and pleasant.
Hospice had a lot to do with it. A hospice team seeks to provide the highest quality of life possible for the family and the patient whose doctor says they have less than 6 months to live and is no longer being actively treated. Hospice teams go wherever the patient is, at home or a healthcare facility.
There's a lot of misinformation out there, and there's a lot of things that people think hospice is about that it really isn't about.
For example, accepting hospice care doesn't demonstrate a lack of faith.
I think that we as a culture have this collective state of denial over death. We don't want to believe that it's coming, and we don't want to accept it because it seems like when you choose hospice that you're just giving up on the person. And we always want to, as Christians, I believe we want to have hope, and we want to hold out for that miracle. But I think if we're thinking clearly, we would know that if God's going to do a miracle, he can do a miracle in hospice just as well as he can do a miracle when you're doing active, invasive treatment.
Some think hospice hastens death when research shows people actually live about a month longer in hospice compared to people with similar health issues who didn't choose it. Another common misconception is that people in hospice are heavily medicated with morphine.
We start all of our patients on a very, very low dose of morphine. It's usually a liquid morphine.
Hospice workers teach family members to administer the drug as needed, pointing out that a little bit of morphine often invigorates people by loosening the muscles that tend to tighten around the lungs of the elderly and critically ill.
So imagine trying to breathe and someone is squeezing your ribs. It's painful, it's difficult, and if you're weak already, it's really hard to get that deep breath in. Morphine relaxes smooth muscle, so it helps those muscles relax so your loved one can take a big deep breath. It also extends the life of oxygen, so oftentimes you think morphine is going to make your loved one feel sleepy and drowsy and sedated. A low dose of morphine will actually give them energy.
Hospice workers frequently provide another drug, lorazepam, to control anxiety and spasms.
There's something at the end of life called terminal agitation, and that can happen. And lorazepam relieves that so the patient can rest. Their legs aren't all over the place.
The hospice team helps families access resources many don't realize they have, which are 100% paid for by Medicare.
We cover all of the medications related to the hospice diagnosis and any symptoms that need managed. All of that is paid for. We give them a little pharmacy card and they go and we pay for that. And we cover equipment. So if your loved one needs oxygen, we don't have to jump through hoops to get oxygen. We put that in the home. We can do hospital beds, low air loss mattresses if they need them, wheelchairs. Any medical equipment that is needed, we can put that in the home as well. And it's all covered. There's no copay.
Chaplains counsel families and the dying person even when it seems like they can't hear, because that sense is the last to go.
What happens when someone comes to the end of their life, even if they are believers, many times people will still have, at that moment, will have doubts. They'll ask questions about eternity. They'll ask questions about their own salvation, and we're able to speak to them and reassure them that God is definitely with them at this moment. God would not leave them or forsake them. So that brings a lot of comfort, not only to them, but also to their families.
Have you found a lot of people who accepted Jesus on their deathbed?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. We often will have people who have actually had moments of conversion on their deathbed. Our ministers are really great. Our chaplains are really great at speaking the truth to folks. And of course, they hear the things that we're saying, and many have come to put their faith in Christ because of that.
Hospice workers observe most of the dying process is spiritual.
In those last days, it's not uncommon for people to see maybe children they've lost, parents that have gone ahead, close friends, close family members. And that alone to me has totally affirmed my faith. I know that my loved ones are waiting for me.
Have you ever seen or heard people talking to God or Jesus?
Mm-hmm. Oh, we had a family that the patient was speaking to Jesus as if he was right there.
So while caring for a terminally ill loved one can be overwhelming, especially at home, hospice can walk you through it.
Because I think a lot of times people are afraid that they won't be able to do it. They won't know what to do. They've never been with a person who is dying. They've never witnessed a person passing away. That's very daunting and it's very difficult. And so you need somebody who can help you, encourage you that you can do it.
Hospice even offers grief counseling for more than a year after the death.
You know, it goes on for a long time, and you could reach different stages of that, of coping with what has happened. So it was very helpful to talk for an hour or so every month or every few weeks, however you want it. They're there for you. And that helps a lot.
And while no one likes the idea of needing hospice care, those who use it often say it was so helpful, they wish they'd started it sooner. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
Coming up, a Christian flag now flies over the City Hall Plaza in Boston after a victory in court. We'll hear that story when we come back. Stay with us. A Christian flag hoisted over Boston City Plaza Wednesday, bringing an end to years of battle. Back in 2017, the city denied an application to raise the flag during an event hosted by Camp Constitution. The reason for the denial, the application form referred to the flag as Christian. After years of court cases, the Supreme Court ruled 9-0. Boston's denial was unconstitutional under the First Amendment's free speech clause. So now the flag is flying. Time now for your Thursday Thankful. I hope you'll join me in this short and simple prayer of gratitude. God, I thank you for a closer walk with you. It's a simple desire, but it is the greatest blessing. And again, I say thank you for a closer walk with you. A daily walk with you is certainly my plea. With that prayer, I encourage you to make Thursday a thankful Thursday all day long. In this gratitude, there is amazing grace. That is going to do it for this edition of CBN News Watch. I want to remind you, you can always find more of our programs on the CBN News Channel. You can find them there at any time. You can also let us know what you think about the stories you've seen today. You can email us. That address is right there at the bottom of your screen. It's newswatch@cbn.com. And of course, you can reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We hope to see you right back here tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.